All right. Hello, everyone. Today is Tuesday. It is November 2nd, and this is the infrastructure group conversation for November. This is a public stream. So let's see here. We have in the agenda, there's a link to the slides, obviously in the agenda, room for questions, and there was a preview video before. So hopefully people were able to take a look at that. There are no questions in the agenda right now, so if anyone has one, go ahead and shout it out. For those that are just joining, I'll note that in the slides, I'd say, and I went over this kind of in the preview video as well. But if you didn't have time to watch that, then slide number 3, we had some good news around exceeding our availability target for October. And the outcome of that was a 99.98 availability target. And then down in slides 8 through 11, we had kind of 4 different areas that we reported out on an effort around reducing our backlog of corrective actions. On slide 9, some work that we've been doing around enabling use of the new container registry database. 10, the implementation of what we're calling squads within our reliability teams. And then in 11, implementation or expansion of the incident manager role across all of engineering. So there's some interesting areas there. And again, if anyone has a question, just go ahead and verbalize. Well, maybe in absence of someone else's question, I'll ask a question. I know that there is a survey out around kind of making group conversations more engaging. One thing that I would be interested to know specifically from the content of the infrastructure group conversation is, are there specific things that you are not seeing in our deck and in our updates that would be more engaging as far as discussion topics? So what would you like to see kind of in our deck in the group conversation each month from infrastructure?
So, I mean, I'll provide at least one. I mean, just as a fly on the wall when it comes to what this meeting is and what this team is doing. It may be inviting for feedback, or it may be inviting for attention if, being that it's a monthly meeting, if there's, there were several of these that I attended a while back, and there was, when there wasn't a whole lot to be said, there was status discussed. There was almost a topic that management had prepared ahead of time as kind of a status update, which would be provided. But then, of course, if there were questions that went down into the deep, then okay, that was priority, right? But I feel that it may attract more viewers, or it may attract more feedback from the people doing the hard work. If there's some level if we don't say anything, then y'all have, okay, well, here's the stats of the month or something like that. And you did make a comment about the uptime being better for sure, but just a thought.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, James. Yeah, and I think the certainly we've been leaning more on kind of providing the information and having it available there for async consumption rather than kind of reading over it. But your point is a good one, is if we're as a way to kind of maybe cultivate some discussion we could potentially go into one of those things. So did I get that right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I didn't mean like go over the whole slide deck or anything like that, but if there's one slide or one quick thing that could provide a summary of everything, then maybe that would like lead to an idea that somebody had that they were unable to think of. Just a thought based on your question.
Yeah. Well, and if you wouldn't mind, I'll put you on the spot. So and maybe in an easy way here, is there one of the topics that seems more interesting for you for us to maybe talk about for a few minutes, and we can see if that engages in some other questions. So in there there was the availability update. There's also this corrective actions work. There's a work on the container registry database, our squads kind of reorganization and our reliability teams, and then the incident manager expansion.
To me, where I find interest on changing it's overall metrics or overall summation of metrics with regards to performance and or uptime and or response rate. If we come, it's that, okay, well, yeah, we have that long-term vision of having an official 4.9 uptime or 5.9 uptime standard, and we're working towards that. So okay, last month it was this month it was that, and over a period of 3 months we've gone up this amount or down this amount, and so we're leading in this direction. Literally a summary. To me that's where it would be, only if there's no other data to be brought up, right? And I'm just thinking of, for others who may attend, I know that there's a lot of other essays that have questioned on, okay, so what is our uptime now, or what is our status now, or what's the direction, or what's the improvement? And it helped to be able to provide some feedback sometimes. And like I said, maybe that's wasting the time of a lot of the people here. I'm just thinking of a summation that might trigger some other thoughts.
Yeah, no, thank you. And that's and so I was inviting you to be our manual, like, spin the wheel on I'm picking one of these topics. And so
I'm good at pointing things out. So I may not be good at doing much, but I'm good at pointing things out. So
let's talk, we can talk a little bit about availability, kind of our target for availability, and I can kind of reference a couple of the this is a public stream, and we do have public information available around it. So this is in the engineering section, explains kind of our monitoring and how we basically determine availability, the instrumentation underneath that, and then also goes into the historical availability with of course October listed there, but then all the other months. And for quite a few months we have been working on improved reliability. Glad to see the result in October, but we every single day. Of course, we've got to come in and do the various work that helps to support that. One of the things that I'll also note is that we have done, or there's been a bit of focus around kind of separating the concept of our availability reporting and what our target is for that. So our target is 99.95, and really the target should be aligned with what the customer expectation is in a particular area. And so 99.95 is pretty well aligned, I think, with our customer base and what their expectations are. The question of like, do we envision to be at 4 nines or 5 nines or whatever? Well, we certainly don't envision to be there just to add nines to the number. I think for each one of these things, we need to ask what is providing the most value to our customers, and also allowing them to to receive the experience they want from the product evolving over time. So if we take absolutely no risk, maybe we can deliver even better reliability, but then that would also slow down the rollout of new features and everything that our customers do want.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but we've also kind of separated availability from the concept of the air budgets that are development teams and kind of across engineering that teams are working towards and have separate measures and separate data that we're collecting so that they're moderating the risk on the overall platform. And so the concept of the air budget is that it is a budget kind of to be spent in taking some risk in rolling out new features. But the point of those is not to exceed the air budget and then have an overall effect on the platform that would affect our overall availability. So it's a few kind of high level thoughts on that. I don't know if anyone else has anything around those topics. So. Actually, Christopher, I guess you've got a question you could verbalize. So.
Yeah, so apologies for being a few minutes late to the discussion, so I didn't get the front end of that, Steve. But it seems like overall, both our high level availability metric as well as things in general seem more stable, particularly in the last month. I was curious if you've kind of felt that way, or is that accurate from your perspective? There's always in operations that tendency that as soon as someone says it, that we all need to knock on wood and make sure that we're ready. But at the same time, like I do feel like at least from my perspective, it feels like it's gotten better. I'd be curious to see if that's your perspective, and then I'd love to hear like what things you think we need to continue to work on to further make infrastructure easier and more manageable.
Yeah, thank you for the question there, and yeah, I mean, as you were saying that, I'm like, oh, you're gonna make me like jinx this. So, but it's a good question, and I do observe that basically there we have had better reliability and there has been better stability, and that I wouldn't confine that to kind of the the efforts within infrastructure. There have been some great efforts within infrastructure, but I think what the other thing I've seen is that there's been an effort across all of engineering. There's been a lot of work that's gone on, especially over the past 6 months, where we've started up these rapid action efforts when there are specific problems that have been highlighted, and we have shifted a lot of people to be focused on those. There's the ongoing work in engineering allocation, which I think one of the most important things out of that is highlighting and prioritizing many of the issues that are identified in infrastructure that are impacting the engineer on call, that are impacting our incidents, and ensuring that those are getting attention where it's needed. In some cases that's within infrastructure, in other cases it's in development feature teams. And so it's all of that effort that I think has resulted in where we're at today, and what we need to continue doing so that so that we're not on this kind of roller coaster of reliability that goes up and down. So that's my thought. I'm curious others in infrastructure or elsewhere if you have some thoughts on it, because nobody wants to hear me drone for half an hour. So.
I can add a couple of items that I would like to see happen next. I do share the sentiment that we are getting more stable, but I kind of like to focus on improvement and getting us to next stages. So what I would like to see is that we continue with the focus on the engineering allocation and all the infra dev items that are contributing to the stability or better reliability, I guess, is a way to put it. But then I would like us to also tighten our goals and be more aligned on what our goals are supposed to be for the next year or two, or whatever the timeline we want to set. And I want us to find and figure out a way to approach those goals from the customer perspective more than we are doing right now. I'm not saying we're not doing it right now, but I would like to see a bit more of that, where the way the customer perceives our platform should become our guideline for the future. So if whatever numbers we are seeing are good, but our customers are saying, the service is slow or is less reliable than they would want to be, I would like us to figure out how we can reliably get that into our day-to-day. Again, not saying that we're not doing that right now. I would like us to get to the next step of that stage.
Yeah, that's a great thought. Thank you for that, Maren. Let's see, Kenny, you had a question?
Yeah, so Steve, you and Christopher are aware of this, but I got the opportunity to join an analyst discussion where Steve and Christopher talked to the analysts about how our partnership is organized between infrastructure and development. It was a question for the analysts who were asking kind of forward-thinking software development organizations, how they are organized in this way. It was kind of clear that we are organized in a very modern way and that our partnership is kind of forward-thinking in the way that it's structured. One thing that I think is unique to GitLab is the concept of a scalability team. Typically, the analysts would say, and other organizations are organized where there is a reliability effort and a kind of platform team similar to our delivery team that's there to ensure that application teams can deliver software quickly. But scalability is unique, and I guess I understand that's to be kind of a recent, I don't know if you call it experiment, but a recent creation. I'm wondering how you would say that is going and what benefits you've seen from the scalability team.
Well, I'll start because this is directly under me. So I'm going to say all nice things, and then everyone else can say not so nice things if they want to. I agree with you. Scalability is a bit atypical. But what I've seen as a main benefit of scalability team is the team that got to focus on some very low level details of the application and the platform itself, that allowed all the other teams to focus on what they do best, shipping values to the customers. Not to say that scalability is not doing the same, but it's on a completely different level than the feature group development that is happening with product. So the fact that, for example, before scalability team came into existence, we relatively frequently had issues with Sidekick and how that, not specifically Sidekick as a product, but more background job processing that we are doing as an application. And the fact that that is nearly non-existent now is due to the work that scalability team and Andrew Newdigate did to re-architect how the application actually uses some of these services. And that is basically what the scalability team continues doing, right? Like taking a look at the services that the feature groups are using, but from a more holistic point of view, and then finding a way to buy us more headroom so that we can do the next stage, which is buying more headroom and continue to doing that. So the team that got specialized in always buying us the 10, 15, 20% more allows us to just continue focusing on what we want to do, and that is ship values to our customers.
So, Kenny, I'll add something as well, and that is that I think that the name Scalability Team is fairly unique, but the function of the team, if you read SRE books, in particular the Google SRE book and other talks that people have done about SRE teams at a lot of modern organizations, these teams that consult with product teams but are based in infrastructure, it's a fairly standard thing nowadays. They don't call them scalability, they call them site reliability engineers. But it is, I think, very much what they're doing is along those lines of that classic consulting with the application engineering teams and helping them to make sure that their applications are reliable and performant and scale.
Yeah, and I think just kind of like on that again, kind of saying a little bit the same as Andrew there. I think that there's a lot of cases where in many companies, either whether it's full stack teams or combined teams of SREs and backend engineers, or just teams where all of those functions are just called software engineering or platform engineering or whatever. I'd say that it's not really unique in that, but one thing that is definitely unique for us, or at least not seen in a lot of different companies, is that we have this ongoing very deliberate intention of not deviating from the use of our own product, and not creating a separate product just for the delivery of our SaaS services. And so I think a lot of other SaaS companies that also have a self-managed product, in many cases, we've seen them kind of take in some ways the easier answer and deviate from their own product that they have their customers self-manage, and they do something very different in the delivery of their SaaS application. Instead, one of the things driving the scalability team, and the use and value that we get out of that is that we do need a targeted team focusing on how we continue to push the boundary of what GitLab, the application, can accomplish in its largest implementation on GitLab.com, which is just that way because it is by nature a multi-tenant service. So that's pretty unique. Maybe not the only company with that challenge, but it is more unique than the other parts of it. So, Nancy, James, you had some comments.
Oh, I was just going to agree. I mean, when with Accenture, we were managing large government financial systems, and we on the bigger products, we would have dedicated teams doing load and stress testing, performance analysis, tweaking, modifying the code based on the performance. I mean, so it's not an uncommon thing, especially when you're trying to make sure that the product delivered to the customer is going to perform as expected. So it's I mean, if the performance is important just as the quality is important, then it's not a bad idea to have this kind of team and this idea going, because there's always somewhere you can improve. There's always the most narrow bottleneck somewhere, and as soon as you fix that one, there's another problem, right? So
great, thank you for those thoughts, James. Kenny, I'm curious, is that kind of hit on on your thoughts question? Yeah.
I think Andrew's point that this is maybe a team that I'm familiar with in industry by another name. And then Steve, your point, I think that it is uniquely important to GitLab because it's really about, we have to make application changes because we have such a strict connection between our application that we also want to provide to our self-managed users that is running in this instance. It really does, like the point that you made about the value that you add is that all of those scalability improvements also apply to every single self-managed customer. So it's unique in that we're part of the infrastructure team, but adding benefits that every single one of these self-managed instances of GitLab get to take on. Thanks.
Yeah, and thank you. Yeah, and thank you for that question. Appreciate it. And it looks like we are just coming up on time here. So Kenny, thank you for the question. James, thank you for the question. Maren and Andrew, appreciate your collaboration on the discussion here. And thanks everyone. Hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next month for the next group conversation.